Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Real Talk, Real Tips video. Today I'm going to be talking about something that plagues a lot of beginner improvisers and people who aren't such beginners as well. And that is the concept of horizontal versus vertical improvisation. Now when I say this, I'm not talking about chords versus scales. If you want to hear my take on that, you can check out this video right here, where I talk about how using scales and using chords are completely separate things. Now, for this video, when I talk about horizontal versus vertical and how it relates to improvisation, I'm talking about how are we phrasing through the chords and getting from one chord to another to create a cohesive melodic solo. That's it. It's not about the actual notes that you're playing in. Are they linear or are they chord tones? Like I said, you can check out that video for that. So first, I'm going to demonstrate what not to do, and that is vertical improvisation. I'm going to use a B-flat blues as an example. All right, so I hope you were able to hear where the problems were. I don't think that sounded that great. But I guess if you're very beginning and you're first learning chords, that would work and you would say, no, that sounds pretty good. But if you start soloing like that, even though it works and it gets through the changes, I think you're setting yourself up for a lot of bad habits for the future. And here's why I think that's not the best way to go about improvisation. And that is, in that solo I just took, I was basically taking each chord of the blues as its own phrase and its own solo. So when you heard me play over the B flat chord, I was playing over B flat 7. Then basically when I got to the E flat 7 in bar 2, I completely disregarded what I played in bar 1 and just played a phrase that works over E flat 7 in bar 2. Then in bar 3, when I went back to B flat 7, I played a phrase that just works over B flat 7. While each one of those individually works, and you might say, oh, look, this works over this line, and these notes work, and this phrase works, and it might sound good in and of itself. It doesn't work to me. It doesn't work smoothly enough from chord to chord to make sense in a cohesive solo that's moving forward. I always say cohesive and all this stuff because I'm really a big believer in the concept of phrasing and of connecting lines to create an actual story and actually tell a story, not just to play lines or licks over certain chords. I think that's where a lot of beginner improvisers get stuck, is because they either go out and transcribe a line, or they learn a line, or someone teaches them a line. That's totally fine, but then they think, okay, that works over B flat 7, so I'm going to play it there. And I'm going to transpose into E flat and play it there, or I'm going to learn a new one over E flat. But they're not really thinking of how to get from B flat to E flat. I always say jazz is the bar line. Okay, what I mean by that is you can play cool stuff over B flat 7, you can play cool stuff over E flat 7, but that transition right in the middle there from B flat to E flat, that's where jazz happens to me. And that's where really playing through chord changes happens. So how can we get better at that? So first we're going to do an exercise I like to do with some of my students, where we just start on any chord tone of the first chord and then just hold it for the length of the chord. So if it's a whole note, if the chord is 4 beats, hold it for a whole note. If it's 2 beats, hold it for 2 beats, whatever. So we're going to start on the third. So we'll start on concert D. And then I'm just going to move as closely as I can to the next chord tone in the next measure. I'm always thinking about how am I going to get from this chord tone to the next one. We're not doing any lines, we're not doing any licks, just whole notes and half notes for right now. Here we go. Great. So what does that do? Okay, I wouldn't just give a kid that exercise and then say, okay, now you know how to play jazz. But what that exercise hopefully does is it shows you that these chords, even though they jump up by fourth and there's 2 5-1s and it goes to the 4 chord and there's a diminished chord in there, it's not that scary. I only played, concert D, concert E flat, and concert D flat. I think I just played 3 notes. And these chords, there are chord tones that are close to each other between the chords, and we can kind of find common ground between these chords. That exact line, that third, and then to 7, back to third, is in, obviously, Tenor Madness. So he's using just those two chord tones, concert D flat, going back and forth. And that kind of leads your ear to connect those notes. So skipping much ahead, once you're able to kind of know the guide tone lines, you know all your chord tones, let's see how we can connect the chords. And just like I did in my first video, which check out here about playing fast, about connecting those phrases using the first note of the next phrase, we can do that with chords too. So I'll have a student play the first measure, but I say at the end of the measure, you have to connect whatever you end with in measure 1 to the downbeat of measure 2. Now, this isn't to say when you solo, you always have to land on the downbeat. That's not what I'm saying. But as an exercise to practice connecting, so many students wait for the downbeat, start their phrase, finish by the end of the measure or by the end of the chord, wait, and then start on the downbeat. This way, we are really bridging those two chords together. So let's take the first two chords, just B flat to E flat. What I'm going to think of is play something over B flat 7 at the end of the measure, whether I'm playing an eighth note, a quarter note, wherever I'm at harmonically, whether I'm playing a chord tone or not, I'm going to try to go as smoothly as I can, half step, whole step, hopefully, into the next downbeat, and then stop on the downbeat of measure 2. Here we go. Hear that? So I started on the third. On the end of 4, I played the 7, the A flat. So I thought the line was going down. A perfect thing to do would be land on the third of the next chord, which is G. And that to me sounds horizontal. It sounds like it's smooth together. Now, let's start on bar 2. Okay, we'll start on bar 2 and then get back to bar 3. So start on the E flat chord, get back to B flat, on that G natural. So I just went up the chord there. Went third, 5, 7, flat 7, flat 9. And I just used an enclosure there, a lower, then upper neighbor, G natural, down to the 5th of the B flat chord, then F. So far we have. Okay, now you can then start on bar 3 and go into bar 4. Start on bar 4, go into bar 5. Or you can, like I said, you can do like I did in my video. Bar 1 into 2, then 2 into 3, then 1, 2, 3, then 3 into 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. You get what I'm saying? This is not to say that you can't play motifs and rhythmic motifs over each chord and connect them. That's totally fine. But what I want you to understand is that whether you're a teacher and you're teaching students or you're a student yourself or more beginner improviser yourself, get away from the thought of every time you see a chord, you play something over it, then you look to the next chord and play something over that chord. It's that kind of chopped up vertical thinking that really holds a lot of people back, because then they start getting into more complex music, or they get into, you know, something that's at a faster tempo, or they take more choruses, or you know, there's a whole lot of variables that then cause them to play solos that solos that don't flow together well, to me anyway. Like I said, this is just to me. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know. But when playing horizontally in the way I'm saying it here, it's not necessarily to say you have to play scalar. Scalar? Scalar? Scalar. Okay, for last example, I'm going to play a very disconnected rhythmically solo. I'm going to play different rhythms and stuff that doesn't really flow together, but I'm going to think horizontally. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't work. Okay, so, you know, that may have worked, it may not have, but I was trying to think of how the chords leading to one another. And I know this might be common sense or common knowledge for a lot of you, but it's not common practice. So many people I hear, and it's usually people who are more on the beginning side of improv, who have learned the chords and they learn scales and they learn chord tones, that they think that, okay, I'm going to attack each chord. I'm going to play perfectly over that B flat 7. And I'm going to play great over that E flat 7. I'm going to nail the 2-5-1. Which is funny because when they think of 2-5-1 as its own phrase, they play horizontally over the 2-5-1, they connect the 2-5-1, but then they don't connect the 2-5-1 to anything around it. So if they practice all the chords like that, they would sound so much better. And that's what I'm getting at with these videos, guys. It's that there are simple things that we can do when we're teaching or when we're practicing ourselves to kind of get rid of bad habits and learn correctly from the beginning. You know, whether we're talking about how to approach playing fast or how to approach, you know, scales and chords or anything like this. There are ways we can do it right from the beginning to set ourselves up to then just make great music in the future. And that's really the goal of all this. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any other thoughts on this, or if I did something totally wrong, or I did something right, or you just have any other ideas, please let me know in the comments below. I will be reading, like always, all of them. I enjoy all of the comments and all the discussion that we've had so far, and I hope to continue it in the future. If you wouldn't mind, please subscribe right up there. It really helps out. It helps you stay tuned to all my videos. And also, you can check out some more right here. Thank you very much, and I'll see you at the next video.